Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1. A gentle sea breeze blows, and the naval ensign of the Seagull Libra flutters in the square of Marine Ford. In the highest pavilion of the naval headquarters fortress, lies the office of the Fleet Admiral. Inside sat the high-ranking officers of the Marine headquarters, Fleet Admiral Sengoku, legendary Vice Admiral Garp, Chief of Staff Tsuru, and the three admirals, the highest fighting force of the Navy. They were sitting with the windows open, enjoying the sea breeze, and sipping hot tea, discussing Blackbeard. Yet, some nobody in the Whitebeard pirates killed the 4th Division commander and defected. What's your name? Marshal D. Teach. Kizaru picked at his nails, thought for a moment, and then said, "This Blackbeard Teach is incredibly audacious. He betrayed the Whitebeard pirates so completely, daring to harm even his own crewmates." Admirals Akainu and Aokiji standing nearby both frowned. Judging from the photos, they don't seem to have a good impression of Blackbeard. Whitebeard's attitude was unclear. He simply sent the 2nd Division commander, Porgas d'Ace, aboard the Moby DK to capture Blackbeard. Lieutenant General Tsuru, with his white hair, rested his hands on the table, his eyes revealing deep thought. This made Kapu, who was drinking tea next to him, pause for a moment. "There are still many things we haven't figured out yet. The sea is far from calm. For example, the meeting between the two emperors a few days ago. Shanks, that guy, why did he personally come to talk to Whitebeard? What did they talk about?" Wearing frog-like glasses and with his long beard braided into a pigtail, Marshal Sengoku spoke expressionlessly, but with a somewhat serious look in his eyes. "Each of the 4 emperors is a terrifying pirate on the seas, wielding immense power. I'm really worried that a meeting between Shanks and Whitebeard might cause some major trouble. Kaido of the Beasts isn't having an easy time in the New World either. It seems he's been secretly trading a lot of weapons. And then there's the Big Mom pirates, who are constantly waging war." At this moment, Sakazuki, the red dog, also spoke with a solemn expression. So many things happening in a row made everyone in the marshal's office sigh. The entire New World is in turmoil, which is putting some pressure on the Marine headquarters. It's not just the New World that's in turmoil, now. Many new faces are emerging on the high seas as well. At this point, Sengoku glanced sideways at Garp, who was leisurely sipping tea, seemingly unconcerned about these matters. "Why are you giving me that look?" Garp is very easygoing. Zhangguo ignored him and continued talking. "The key point is that an extraordinary little guy has emerged, even more ruthless than those supernovas." At this point in the Warring States period, a slight smile appeared on his usually stern face, as if he admired it. "Oh? How ruthless can it be?" Salino, with his legs crossed, said dismissively. Neither Akainu Sakazuki nor the sleepy Aokiji Kyuzan reacted. "A ruthless supernova who hasn't even entered the New World?" The general, who possessed the highest combat strength, remained unmoved. On the contrary, Garp, who was drinking tea on the sofa, seemed quite interested. "Supernovas? Luffy, the Straw Hat Pirates are also one of the supernovas. How do they compare?" Garp chuckled. It's best not to call him Luffy in this kind of situation. Everyone present was clearly used to it. Sengoku glanced at Garp again, somewhat helplessly, and then began to introduce the little guy to everyone as if he knew him by heart. "He's not a pirate. A year ago, I debuted in the North Blue, accepted a mission to protect a certain kingdom, and killed a pirate with a 30 million berry bounty. Even outside the Grand Line, 30 million berries is no small sum. Pirates like that must have some tricks up their sleeves. Another supernova has emerged from Bahai? My hometown really does produce talented people." Kizaru Borsalino's somewhat teasing remark left Aokiji, Garp, and the others speechless. "What is this? You're just bragging." Sengoku cleared his throat lightly and continued his introduction. Later, this little guy took on some more missions, basically acting like a bounty hunter. Within a year, from the North Blue to the Grand Line, I continuously fought off pirates, killing up to 300 million bounty pirates. Now, all three great generals looked towards the Warring States period. 300 million? Those pirates must be quite powerful in the Grand Line. Being able to kill them means they're quite strong. But we should have heard of this kind of person before, right? Aokiji thought back for a moment and realized that he had spent more time in the Grand Line and had indeed never heard of it. Sakazuki and Kizaru nodded in agreement. This bounty is no small amount, it requires either exceptional strength or ruthless cruelty. This guy killed such a powerful pirate before even entering the New World, he's no ordinary person. Because this guy concealed his identity, it led to a misjudgment. You might remember, you thought it was done by some ruthless figure under one of the four emperors. It wasn't until Momuzagi recently went to the North Blue that she saw this guy's true face, and it was truly astonishing. Sengoku explained, and Akainu and the other two also remembered. Yes, it certainly happened, I even thought it was Fire Fist Ace who did it on the way. But neither Akainu, Sakazuki, Kizaru, nor Aokiji truly believed it. If they're not pirates, then it doesn't really concern them. Although killing a pirate with a bounty of 300 million in the North Blue is impressive, it's actually nothing special, it just means they have some strength. Mr. Sengoku, you only defeated 300 million pirates, how powerful could that be? Aokiji yawned and said somewhat boredly. Marshal Sengoku glanced at the three generals in difference, then looked at Vice Admiral Garp, who seemed quite interested. Staff officer he, who also knew about the matter, remained calm. Killing pirates with a bounty of 300 million might not seem like much to you. But this ruthless child is only 8 years old. As the Warring States Marshal spoke, he picked up his teacup and took a sip. Clearly, everyone's surprise was expected. 8 years old. Aokiji and Kizaru exchanged a surprised glance. The same applies to Akainu and Vice Admiral Garp. It might seem normal for someone in their teens to be like this, but for an 8-year-old is quite surprising, as their body hasn't even fully developed yet. What were they doing when they were 8 years old? They probably hadn't even joined the Navy yet. Incredible. This kid's already so amazing at 8 years old. Speaking of which, I also have a younger brother, who is only 8 years old. I can't help but think of my family, Kizaru Borsalino exclaimed in amazement. Everyone was speechless for a moment. Don't you, Kizaru, have any self-awareness? Others are amazing at 8 years old, and you're trying to intimidate people by saying you have an 8-year-old brother? You're 56 years old, and you have an 8-year-old brother. Garp was even more surprised than before. His mouth gaped open, and he looked completely astonished. Faced with the speechless looks from the crowd, Kizaru shrugged. They really do have an 8-year-old brother, who can blame them when the old folks still had the fighting spirit. Chapter 2. Akainu, Aokiji, Garp, Sengoku, and even strategist Tsuru looked at Borsalino with strange expressions, noticing the subtle doting look in his eyes. But deep down, he also believed what Kizaru Borsalino had said. Physiologically speaking, it seems not impossible, it's just that older men and women are truly formidable. My younger brother, having a child late in life, as everyone knows, cherishes this little guy dearly and won't let him out of his sight for even a moment. Kizaru's lips curled up behind his sunglasses, leaving everyone even more speechless. And you even said, aren't you just like that yourself? Cough cough. Seeing that the topic was getting further and further off track, Marshal Zhangguo coughed, bringing everyone's attention back. The human-shaped rabbit has been found, and there are plans to have him join the Navy. This portrait was just sent back recently, the person should be arriving soon. Getting back to the main topic, the Warring States Marshal spoke while pulling out several portraits from his desk and handing them to everyone. Akainu, Kizaru, and Aokiji then realized that today's meeting wasn't just a tea party. Fleet Admiral Sengoku also wanted everyone to see this genius young fellow. So, Garp, Aokiji, and the others took the portrait to see what this 8-year-old prodigy who had taken down a pirate with a bounty of 300 million looked like. Upon seeing it, everyone immediately frowned. It doesn't look ugly at all, in fact, its face shape is quite cute. I just don't know why, but this child doesn't look like Kizaru at all. Wearing round sunglasses, the same color as Kizaru's, this little boy is quite handsome. Wait, Kizaru. Aokiji, Akainu, Garp, Sengoku, and Tsuru looked at the handsome 8-year-old boy, then at Kizaru. Are they brothers? One's handsome, the other's sleazy? Or is it just my imagination, because of their age difference? Initially unconcerned, Kizaru Salino noticed the strange looks from the crowd, his attention shifting from his fingernails, and then he lazily glanced over. At first glance, Borsalino's eyes widened immediately. Isn't that my younger brother? Kizaru was somewhat dazed and let out a startled cry. He then held the portrait in both hands and examined it carefully. Although I haven't seen my younger brother in a long time, even though he's grown a bit taller, he hasn't changed at all. Especially these glasses, I gave them to myself. Borsalino? Your brother? Is he really your brother? Sengoku, Garp, Aokiji, and the others were all taken aback. To make matters worse, the two 8-year-old children are actually the same person? The younger brother of Marine Admiral Kizaru? Report. At this time, the marshal's office, which had been filled with boos and jeers, fell silent instantly. That voice, it's Momuzagi. She returned with an 8-year-old prodigy? Please come in. The people in the room immediately wiped away their surprised expressions, each adopting a casual demeanor as if nothing had happened. The office door opened too. The spirited Momuzagi, with her long hair tied up and a long sword tucked into her belt, stood earnestly at the doorway. Beside her stood a man, dressed in a neat little suit, wearing round sunglasses similar to Kizaru's, with one hand. One hand was resting on the spider tattoo on Momuzagi's thigh. That expression of enjoyment, it can be summed up in one word, lewd. Holy crap! That expression, it's exactly the same as Kizaru's. Aokiji Kyuzan thought to himself, holy crap! His eyes widened in surprise. Garp and Sengoku gritted their teeth as they watched the little guy's hand resting on his snow-white thigh. This little boy looks handsome, but he's doing Kizaru's thing? What the hell, what's going on? It really is my brother. Borsalino seemed lost in thought. For a moment, everyone was a little dumbfounded. Is this the younger brother of Kizaru, who killed a pirate with a bounty of 300 million at the age of 8? They are exactly the same. Greetings, Marshal of the Warring States period. Admiral Akainu, Admiral Aokiji, Brother Kizaru. Wow, this is Vice Admiral Garp. Oh, and the beloved Ms. Tsuru. The 8-year-old boy, wearing round sunglasses, actually bowed and greeted everyone present, as if he knew them all. And when that little pervert bowed, he casually touched Momuzagi's snow-white thigh next to him. The Warring States Marshal and others fell silent at this moment. Even Kizaru and his companions, Aokiji and Akainu, exchanged glances. The looks in Akainu's and Aokiji's eyes seemed to say, although it doesn't quite look like him, it's confirmed, he really is your brother. Hello, little friend. Finally, Ms. He responded with a smile. Then, the Warring States Marshal looked at Momuzagi. Mamoto, let me give you a report first. Yes, Mr. Sengoku, the matter is as follows. Momuzagi-jun didn't mind the child's little antics, after all, she was just a cute little kid. After I completed my mission in the North Sea, on my way back, I passed a small island and heard the sounds of fighting. When I rushed over, I found a small figure fighting a group of pirates. It's this guy next to me. He sent those pirate captains flying with a single punch, crashing into several mountains on the island before dying instantly. Momuzagi-jun still feels a bit amazed when she thinks back. She only realized it was this 8-year-old child when she walked in. Immediately, Fleet Admiral Sengoku, Vice Admiral Garp, Akainu, and the others stared in astonishment at the tiny figure, somewhat incredulous. This little kid punched someone and shattered several mountain peaks? It seems this little guy really is incredibly strong to defeat a pirate with a bounty of 300 million. Soon, Sengoku, Garp, Aokiji, Akainu, and Vice Admiral Tsuru all glanced at the stunned Kizaru. Everyone's looking at me. I don't know what's going on either. When did my brother become so strong? Kizaru stared blankly, utterly astonished. The 8-year-old boy, on the other hand, remained unfazed, his face still bearing that sleazy expression. I know all of these people. Summer, Kizaru Borsalino's younger brother, was originally named Borsalino. Never mind, he's called Summer now. In Summer, a genuine Earthling travels to the world of One Piece. She came into this world starting from scratch, but unfortunately, she still has the body of an 8-year-old. Because her older brother was Admiral Kizaru, one of the Navy's top combatants, Xiaotian grew up healthy all the way. Until, the system that every transmigrator has a chance to obtain is activated. A system where you can become infinitely stronger by spending money and through battles. When activated in the summer, a random template is enabled, randomly selecting one ability from the 3 types of Haki and various Devil Fruit abilities. The final result is obtaining the infinitely enhanced template of Armament Haki. Chapter 3. Once you have the template, it's simple. In summer, all you need to do is keep spending money and fighting pirates to upgrade your Armament Haki without any limit. In this world of One Piece, the allure of gaining unlimited power through Armament Haki is incredibly tempting for fans who have traveled here. Driven by a strong desire to become stronger, Xiaotian left home, abandoning his doting new family, and embarked on a relentless hunt for pirates at sea, earning bounties. For an 8-year-old child, acquiring bounties is the most effective way to strengthen themselves at the beginning. Soon, starting from the North Blue, from being a simple small-time pirate, Xiaotian fought his way up, relying on his initial Armament Haki and spending money to strengthen himself. Therefore, in just 1 year, their strength has increased by leaps and bounds, and now they have accumulated formidable power. Even Xiaotian himself didn't know how strong he was. He took down a pirate with a bounty of 300 million with a single punch. He's probably reached a level comparable to an admiral, right? The strength of his Armament Haki is unimaginable. And so far, Summer has already consumed nearly 1 billion pellis, so a new template will be available soon. Because of their formidable strength, Xiaotian has already eliminated most of the bounties in Bahai, from the lowest to the highest. So far, only a few small-time pirates who don't believe in the power of the sea have come to their deaths. The shrewd pirates have all kept their distance when they hear of Xiaotian's reputation. To become stronger and acquire new ability templates, more money is needed. Hunting pirates in the North Blue is no longer enough. So, after meeting Momuzagi-jun, Natsuki readily accepted the invitation and came to Marine headquarters. Summer. What are you doing here? Did your parents really want you to leave? Borsalino, Kizaru, looked utterly astonished. His immediate concern wasn't Xiaotian's strength, but rather how this kid had managed to survive the doting yet uneasy environment of his grandparents. Borsalino, brother. Of course, my parents were against it at first, absolutely against it, until one day I wiped out a whole ship full of pirates right in front of them, and then it was fine. Summer waved his hand casually, speaking in a condescending manner. Kizaru was speechless, but given his parents' personalities, it was indeed the case. When it was time for him to go out and see the world, they wouldn't stop him even if they spoiled him. A man should go out and see the sea, provided, of course, that he has enough strength to survive. Wait a minute, how did you get so strong? I remember I just taught you basic naval combat skills around New Year's. At this moment, Kizaru finally snapped out of his surprise at seeing Summer. The one who killed 300 million pirates, who sent a pirate flying with a single punch and shattered several mountains along with it, was my brother? Upon hearing this, Fleet Admiral Sengoku, Garp, Akainu, Aokiji, and others all cast curious glances at him. You only started teaching this at the new year? It hasn't even been a year yet. Brother, you have no idea how incredibly talented I am, I'm very strong. Summer simply attributed all of this to so-called talent. Other reasons simply don't hold water for an 8-year-old, even Whitebeard wasn't that strong at that age. How to explain it? Let talent explain it all. Kizaru Salino was speechless for a moment. Good heavens, what am I supposed to say? You're my own brother, exceptionally talented, so naturally my talent can't be lacking either. However, Kizaru somewhat agrees with this point. After all, Xia Tian's talent was considered very strong at the time, he could learn to perform any move after seeing it only once. The kid's armament haki in the summer is really strong. That's undeniable. That extreme level of armament haki is comparable to Vice Admiral Garp's. Momuzagi-jun didn't mind that Natsum was also present, and Kizaru was listening as well, so he directly gave his evaluation. Although I've never seen Vice Admiral Garp at his full strength, judging from the power he's shown, this kid Summer definitely has it. This level of armament haki is impossible to achieve without extreme training. This is an 8-year-old child. Who would believe it if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes? Upon hearing this, everyone, including Kizaru Salino, looked even more bewildered. Armament haki? What level is Vice Admiral Garp? How could such a small body contain such great spirit and power? Keep in mind that even though Big Mom was young and very strong back then, she was also quite large. Moreover, judging from Kizaru's reaction, he rarely goes home, and even when he does, he doesn't stay long. It seems he's unaware of his younger brother's strength. That's normal, there are only 3 generals, and each of them is very busy, barely having time to go home. Of course, as Momuzagi said, everyone knew that Momuzagi, as a candidate for general, would never make such a joke. This 8-year-old Xia Tian has an incredibly strong armament haki. Anyway, this is a good thing. Xia Tian is practically one of us now. Although I'm young, I'm old enough to join the Navy, serving the Navy is the right path. The Warring States Marshal was all smiles, a kind smile even appearing on his face. This guy is a genius, and he's also Borsalino's younger brother. At his age, his background is definitely not an issue. Since everyone's here, they should at least stay in the Navy. That's right. So strong at 8 years old, what will she be like when she grows up? Even Big Mom, one of the 4 emperors, might not have been this powerful back then. Garp had a wide smile on his face. As for the small actions and creepy behavior we just saw, what does that have to do with anything? The Warring States Marshal wants me to join, no problem, but he has to pay me. I need to make money, lots of money. Summer anticipated this, and without any hesitation, she directly stated what she wanted. Joining the Navy is all about making more money. It's good to have a powerful backer, and besides, the richest one is the world government. Upon hearing this, the Warring States Marshal immediately waved his hand. No problem. You're being promoted to Major General, with a monthly salary of 500,000 berries. The Warring States Marshal spoke with great pride. This salary is already quite high. You want money, right? I'm sure this kid will be attracted. Too little. To everyone's surprise, Xia Tian shook his head without even thinking. The sight of him wearing sunglasses startled the Warring States Marshal and the others. Chapter 4. Not enough? Then 600,000. Without much hesitation, the Warring States Marshal directly increased the weight. Is that all right now? I don't know where this little kid learned to be so greedy. It's still not enough. Xia Tian sighed inwardly and shook her head again. This marshal still sees himself as a child. Oh? Little one, how many do you want? Sakazuki, the red dog, narrowed his eyes, looking at Xia Tian's little face, exuding the majesty of an admiral. I want to be a general, earning 100 million berries per month, and for every single attack, I'll need to pay an additional 100 million. Summer's little boy had a serious expression on his face as he spoke, holding up one finger of his left hand. Immediately, everyone present doubted their ears and was startled. Kizaru's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets, he looked completely bewildered. My 8-year-old brother came to naval headquarters and, in front of all the admirals, staff officers and the fleet admiral, demanded the rank of admiral. And he even asked for a salary of 100 million. This is unbelievable, bro. Does it have to be this intense? Garp paused for a moment, then burst into laughter while holding his teacup. The Warring States Marshal, Aokiji, Lady Tsuru, and Momuzagi all looked astonished and surprised. You want to be a general? A salary of 100 million, and you'll have to pay extra for every action. Garp thought it was a bit of childish talk, but Summer nodded seriously. The Warring States period held the same view. What does a Marine Admiral mean? It means to intimidate the vicious pirates and all evil on the high seas. Moreover, the Navy traditionally has 3 fixed seats, which requires even greater strength. Just by looking at the strength of the 3 generals, you can tell that each of them is capable of causing devastating destruction, like a natural disaster. You little brat, and you call yourself a general. Seeing Summer's serious expression, Akainu Sakazuki couldn't help but find it somewhat amusing. What a presumptuous brat, daring to declare his ambition for the rank of general. As he spoke, Sakazuki couldn't help but glance at Kizaru's dazed expression. Your younger brother is too naughty. Summer, however, was unhurried. As a time traveler, he was far more mature than an 8-year-old, and naturally knew that becoming a general was not an easy task. Then, Admiral Akainu, you hold them off. The moment the words left his mouth, a powerful aura erupted. Summer, who was originally next to Momuzagi, moved with incredible speed. He appeared in front of Akainu Sakazuki in an instant. Before Sakazuki could understand what he meant, a fist appeared in front of him. This small black fist shadow was covered in armament haki. Akainu reacted quickly, but it was too late for him to retaliate with a punch. His hands, glowing with the red light of magma, instantly crossed in front of him. Bang! The small fist collided squarely with Akainu Sakazuki's elemental arm. With an incredulous look in his eyes, Sakazuki was thrown back by the immense force and sent flying. He leaped through the open window, his entire body turning to magma mid-air, crashing into Piazza Ox in Marine Ford like a shooting star. From the moment Xia Tian said he would block it, to the moment Akainu Sakazuki was knocked away, it all happened in the blink of an eye. That's too fast. Inside the marshal's office, Sengoku, Garp, Ms. Tsuru, Aokiji, Kizaru, and the others were all shocked. Especially Kizaru Salino, who looked at his own brother as if he had seen a ghost. This kid, he's really strong. Sengoku and Garp exchanged a glance, communicating with each other through their eyes. The one who got knocked away was a Marine Admiral. Akainu Sakazuki. Even without any warning, knocking Sakazuki away like that wouldn't be easy, let alone after the warning. With his arms outstretched in defense, he flew straight out of the window. Furthermore, given the 3 admirals' control over their own Logia-type elements, even a weak armament haki wouldn't be able to exert such a significant impact on them. Is it true, as Momuzagi-jun said, that this summer's kids are just as powerful and domineering as Garp? Shocked, Sengoku turned his gaze to Momuzagi. Momuzagi knew that Summer was very strong. Unexpectedly, he directly attacked Admiral Akainu and sent him flying. On the plaza inside the harbor, a crater, glowing red-hot, appeared there, flames burning and billowing black smoke. This immediately attracted the attention of many naval officers and soldiers in the square. General Sakazuki. The crowd in the square was taken aback and completely baffled. An enemy attack? Impossible, that flew out of the Marshal's office. With figures like Marshal Sengoku and Vice Admiral Garp present, how could any enemy possibly have invaded the Marshal's office area on the top floor of the fortress? The commotion immediately attracted many people, who all looked up at the attic. Zephyr, with his purple hair, also noticed it, frowned, glanced at it, and rushed straight towards the Marshal's office. What happened? Zifa peered into the Marshal's office from the doorway. Sengoku, Garp, Aokiji, and Kizaru are all there, along with Granny Tsuru and Momuzagi. Little baby. What happened? Why did Sakazuki create a fire pit in the square? Zifa found it strange. The child looked to be only 7 or 8 years old, standing on the table and retracting his fist. Zeph, you've come. You tell me, Momuzagi. The Warring States Marshal was somewhat at a loss for words, still feeling astonished. Thus, through Momuzagi's description, Zephyr learned about this cute little boy who kept asking for money and the position of general. Ha ha ha. So that's how it is. What does age matter? As long as you have the ability, that's all that matters. Warring States period, I have high hopes for this kid. Zifa laughed heartily, and was about to go over and pat Xiaotian on the shoulder to express his high praise. At this moment, Sakazuki's shout came from below. Good lad! Come down here and we'll fight again. Summer walked to the window, looked down, and smiled. Sakazuki had already stepped out of the pit, looking defiant. I just threw a punch and, in a brief exchange with Akainu, I obtained Akainu's physical combat template. The physical combat template of Admiral Akainu has been obtained, as detailed below. The system notification appeared in Xiaotian's mind, which meant that he had learned all of Akainu's combat techniques. This is one of the abnormal aspects of the system. With this feature, you can learn your opponent's fighting moves and techniques during battles, regardless of who you face in the summer, and the template will also be enhanced. Akainu. Kizaru Salino was about to advise his 8-year-old brother not to take it so seriously. The next second, Xiaotian had already jumped out of the window. This fight is exactly what I wanted. Chapter 5. That kid's got guts. Garp, looking on with amusement, immediately ran outside the attic railing. Sengoku, Zifu, Aokiji, and the others followed, watching in astonishment. Summer leaped down, and you could see that her hands were covered in black, her fists clenched. Akainu's body was covered in magma, and flames erupted from him. I used the magma fruit ability. His fist transformed into lava, unleashing the force of a volcanic eruption, and he punched Xiaotian. That punch was quite powerful. The surrounding naval officers and soldiers were even more astonished to see the admiral make his move, especially against such a small figure. Summer directly adopted Akainu's physical combat template, incorporating his power generation and techniques. With the general's taijutsu, this move can finally be considered a complete attack. First move, to suppress the mountain. Summer thought to herself, and then unleashed the force of her falling from above. The small, black-covered fist met Sakazuki Akainu's magma fist head-on. With a loud bang, lava splashed everywhere. Keep pressing down. Its immense power and extreme intensity of armament haki are unlike anything an 8-year-old child could wield. Akainu was startled, he realized he couldn't withstand the magma from his ordinary fist. Big fire! The magma surging from his body caused the extensions of his arms to churn, carrying the powerful force of a volcanic eruption. The power of Akainu's punch increased dramatically. But what surprised Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr, and the others in the attic even more was, even though Akainu and Sakazuki used their ultimate fire breath attack, it was still broken by Summer's punch. Then, Summer landed steadily on the ground, avoiding a direct attack on Akainu's front. Akainu's expression changed drastically as he looked at Xia Tian, surprised that his powerful fire breath hadn't been able to overturn him. This kid is not to be underestimated, his strength is far beyond what an 8-year-old child could unleash. Next, Xia Tian revealed an adorable little boy smile, leaped forward, his entire body covered in domineering aura, fearless of Akainu's scorching magma, and engaged in a brutal, hand-to-hand combat with Akainu. How scary, little brother, what did you eat? It's so strong. Kizaru Salino's heart tightened, the image of his adorable younger brother had been completely overturned in his mind. Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr, and the others grew increasingly serious as they looked at the scene. Summer below easily clashed with Sakazuki's moves. Especially its powerful and domineering aura, which makes it completely unafraid of Logia-type abilities. That's impressive. That's armament haki in Ryuo form, right? Aokiji Kyuzan looked on in amazement. Even though Sakazuki also used armament haki combined with the magma fruit's power, Summer's haki was clearly stronger. The fists and arms, covered in black, even had flowing red aura of dominance. Isn't this just a high-level technique for using armament haki? Good. The three from the Warring States period all nodded affirmatively. Seeing the fierce battle below, where Akainu and his opponent were evenly matched, Summer looked at them as if she had found a treasure. In fact, Garp and the others could all see that, in this exchange, Summer actually had a slight advantage. In close combat, even Akainu Sakazuki is no match for an 8-year-old child? The more I read, the more unbelievable it became. Zephyr, Sengoku, Garp, Tsuru, Momuzagi, and everyone else were stunned. Ryuo's haki is powerful, his fighting skills are as proficient as Akainu's, and his strength can go head-to-head with the explosive power of the magma fruit. And this is just a child. 8 years old. The plaza floor was shattered, lava was splashing everywhere, and flames were spreading and burning fiercely all around. Both of them moved extremely fast. Canine-toothed Crimson Lotus. Suppress the mountain. Akainu finally managed to create some distance, and immediately his head, formed from magma, lunged forward. That dog's head is so big, one bite could swallow 2 summers' worth of bodies. But Xiaoqing once again subdued the mountain with a single punch. The air rippled and rippled due to the impact pressure caused by the powerful force exuding armament haki. It collided with the canine-tooth Crimson Lotus from a distance, and the dog's head immediately exploded. That explosive power was completely no match for Xiaotian's decisive punch. Holy crap! Is this a child? Who is he? How can he fight Admiral Akainu to this extent? That's terrifying. It was Vice Admiral Momuzagi who brought it back today. The naval officers and soldiers who had gathered around the square to watch the spectacle were dumbfounded. The marshal and generals, who were shocked in the attic, exclaimed that the little monster was a monster. No, it's even more monstrous than a monster. Salino, what's wrong with you? You didn't even know your brother was so gifted. Garp couldn't help but exclaim in amazement, and even turned around and blurted out something to Kizaru. Kizaru's astonishment and shock were no less than anyone else's. And the summer below is getting more and more energetic as the battle goes on. Those pirates can't compare to a marine admiral. This is awesome. You can earn enhancement rewards from battles. Armament haki template proficiency increased. Stamina cap increased. Power cap increased. Akainu's physical combat template proficiency increased. The system kept beeping with updates, and Xiaotian could clearly feel his own progress. The fight became increasingly easier. This is a much greater boost than killing pirates with a bounty of 300 million. Having faced off against a top-tier player, Xiaotian now estimates that his overall strength is at least 10 times greater. Keep in mind, this is just a friendly sparring match, not even a life-or-death struggle. Sakazuki Akainu was also surprised by Summer's strength. This kid's skill level is actually at a general level. Akainu was so shocked that he couldn't believe that this was a child who was more than half a head smaller than himself. But as the battle intensified, Akainu found himself unable to gain the upper hand, and his full strength was being unleashed. Gradually, Akainu, who was being overwhelmed, began to change his mindset. This is not a child. Akainu's suppressed anger was about to erupt. Oh no! We can't continue like this, Sakazuki is going all out. Sengoku's expression changed, he clearly noticed the difference in Akainu's attack. They were just maintaining a friendly sparring level, but now they're being much more ruthless, and the temperature in the air is constantly rising. Don't let anything go wrong. Zephyr, Garp, and the others also noticed and exchanged glances. We're preparing to stop the two of them. Stop, that's enough. Sengoku immediately roared. Kizaru, Garp, and Zephyr jumped directly into the arena and forcibly separated the two. Sakazuki, the Akainu, only stopped attacking when he saw Garp standing in the middle of the field. A beam of light gathered in front of him as Kizaru raised his two palms. All right, little brother, that's enough. Chapter 6. At this point, the two finally ceased their fighting and withdrew all their power. Summer is truly a genius, he possesses the strength of a general at such a young age. At this moment, the way Marshal Zephyr looked at Xiatian changed, it was as if he were looking at a treasure. What more is there to consider? A clean background, formidable strength, and limitless potential. We absolutely have to bring that guy into the navy. Sakazuki, the red dog, looked at Summer intently, then walked back to the fortress without saying a word. With his back to everyone, Akainu's eyes revealed a hint of admiration. This is indeed a promising talent. With his ability to kill pirates in the North Blue, he could easily become an admiral, though it might be a bit early. Garp, Sengoku, and the others were somewhat surprised. Sakazuki's reaction clearly indicated that he did not object. Soon, everyone returned to the marshal's office. Does anyone have any objections to Xiatian requesting the position of general? The Warring States Marshal began his speech first, glancing at the expressions of the crowd. Garp, oblivious to everything, didn't care at all. In fact, he seemed quite pleased. The same applies to Aokiji Karazen. Ms. He has never cared about these positions. Zifa looked on with admiration. After witnessing Xiatian's strength, Sakazuki remained silent. Needless to say, Kizaru was all smiles, thinking that if his younger brother became an admiral, both brothers in the family would hold the position of admiral in the navy. Clearly, the decision rested with the Marshal of the Warring States period. Little Summer, the navy is the face of the world government, and the army that maintains order and justice on the seas. As an admiral, you must obey the orders of the celestial dragons. Have you thought it through? There were certain stakes involved, and the Warring States Marshal had to say it. In fact, I would prefer that Xiatian start as a substitute player. Yes, I want to be a general, and the salary can't be lacking. Summer sat down next to Kizaru and said with a smile. Having demonstrated extraordinary talent and immeasurable value, the Navy will choose to accept him. This was expected. In the world of One Piece, Summer knows it like the back of her hand. The seas are starting to become turbulent. Even if we don't agree now, when we face a war against Whitebeard, we'll desperately need high-level combat power like ours. General, that's not an exaggeration. At your age, if you were to become a general, there wouldn't be enough subordinates to fill the position. That's fine, my brother has it. I just need the money. I don't have direct authority to appoint generals, so let's go to Mary Gioase. As he spoke, the Warring States Marshal stood up abruptly. Our navy has unilaterally accepted, but as the highest combat force, the decision rests with the 5 elders. In that case, let's go. With a smile, Zhangguo took the lead and started walking out. For someone with such talent, what's wrong with making an exception for him? It's absolutely worth it. The 3 admirals, Garp, and the others were all taken aback, and then followed them out. Summer followed Kizaru outside. Mary Gosa. Between world government powers. 5 elderly men, 4 dressed in suits and 1 in a white Taoist robe, sat on the sofa. They were each looking at some documents, but didn't say anything. Just now, the Navy called, and Sengoku, the 3 admirals, and that old guy Garp, along with their group, are coming to see me. Soon. Footsteps could be heard in the corridor. Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr, the 3 admirals, even strategist Tsuru and Momuzagi all came in. A&D. A little child? Sengoku, what important matter brings so many of your naval personnel here? An elderly man with straight, silver-white hair put down the documents in his hand, looked up, and asked. The other 4 also looked up. 5 elders, there is a matter concerning the general that requires your decision. Knowing that the 5 elders were usually very busy, Sengoku went straight to the point. General. The 5 elders glanced at the 3 generals and asked with some doubt. It's this. Xiaotian, here's what happened. Sengoku explained the situation to the 5 elders and truthfully reported what had just happened. Salino, your brother. Exceptionally powerful armament haki? Skilled in fists? And aspiring to be an admiral. Even the 5 elders, who held high positions, were somewhat surprised to hear that this handsome young boy was so strong. The admiral wouldn't make fun of them, especially since so many people came together, which meant this little boy was indeed very capable. Yes, that's right. Xiaotian knew exactly who these 5 elders were, and said with a smile. But based on just one side of the story, how could the 5 elders so easily appoint the 4th general? Moreover, the 5 elders were still somewhat skeptical of superstition. At 8 years old, with most parts of his body not yet fully developed, how could he be so strong? At this time, the 5 elders exchanged a glance, and then the 4th elder stood up. Perfect timing. I'm also skilled in boxing. How about I give you a try? The 5th elder, also known as the 4th elder, is a blonde-haired man with a blonde beard. He also fights with his fists. Immediately, apart from Sengoku and the others, Momuzagi, Kizaru, Aokiji, and Akainu were all somewhat taken aback. The 4th of the 5 elders, using his fists? Most of these people, who weren't as senior as Sengoku and others, were unaware of the 5 elders' fighting strength. Okay. Summer didn't have any objections, and she rolled up her sleeves with a smile. No one would believe that the 5 elders lacked individual strength, and Xiaotian knew that these 5 were definitely extraordinary. Seeing this, the people around immediately made way for the 2 of them. Summer didn't waste any words. Armament haki wrapped around his arm, and he threw a punch. Ryuo. The 5 elders narrowed their eyes upon seeing this. On the high seas, it's not surprising to see both young people and those from the old era. But this level of domineering presence is quite different when it comes from an 8-year-old boy. This kid's got something. The 4th elder's eyes narrowed, and he immediately assumed a defensive stance, wanting to test just how powerful and domineering Xiaotian's little fist was. But the next moment, with a loud bang, their powerful auras clashed. The 4th elder felt an immense force surge from the clashing fists. He was actually knocked back by Xiaotian's punch. Although he was still standing in a defensive stance, his feet slid backward on the ground, and his arms went numb. So strong! Startled, the 4th elder had barely regained his footing when a small figure appeared before him, launching a barrage of punches. Powerful, imposing, and fast. Just like Kong back in the day. Thus, the 4th elder was relentlessly attacked by Xiaotian, with no chance to fight back. He was driven back all the way, and even the expensive floorboards between the powerful figures were shattered. The immense power and aura left the other 4 elders utterly astonished. This kid, he's really that strong? It's no exaggeration. The first elder's eyes lit up, the fourth elder's strength was no less than that of a general. Even though they lost the initiative and were compressed into this state, it still shows how excellent Xia Tian was. Chapter 7. Armament Haki Template Proficiency Increased. Stamina Cap Increased. Power Cap Increased. Obtained the Physical Techniques Template of the Four Elders. System prompts appeared one after another in Xia Tian's mind. This is what makes the system so terrifying. As long as there is battle, Xia Tian will continuously grow stronger. Now, after only a few punches, the system has acquired the fourth Elder's template, and all his stats and abilities are constantly improving with each battle. I feel like he's not even as good as Sakazuki. However, the fourth Elder's physical combat template was actually not as good as Akainu's, Xia Tian muttered to himself as he fought. The voice wasn't loud, but everyone in the room heard it, and Sengoku and the other navy men all had strange expressions on their faces. The five elders simply smiled. At this time, Xiaqing's armament haki underwent a change during the ongoing battle. Congratulations, host! Your armament haki template has reached the top level. The enhancement of armament haki resulted in a surge in Xia Tian's strength. This filled Xia Tian with joy. After nearly a year of honing his skills, his armament haki had finally reached the top level. Of course, all of this happens within Xia Tian's body, it's only a fleeting moment outside. The battle with the fourth elder is still ongoing. Upon hearing Xia Tian's words, the fourth elder assumed that Xia Tian was implying that his strength was inferior to Akainu's. He was immediately furious. His aura was overwhelming, and all of his armament haki erupted. The entire power zone shuddered, the airflow quickened, creating a strong wind. The floor, which had only been cracked, now showed large gaps. The sofa and counter were all overturned. The other four elders of the five elders didn't pay any attention and calmly stepped back. Sengoku, Garp, and the others also took several steps back, making room for each other. Summer's relentless attack stalled for a brief moment, freeing the fourth elder from his passive defense. Seeing the fourth elder's imposing aura reach its peak, no one present tried to stop him. Even Kizaru Salino didn't move. He wasn't afraid of getting injured in the summer, at least his younger brother wouldn't lose his life here. Like everyone else, I wanted to see where the limits of Summer's full power lay, and how far such a young boy could go. Starting with the fourth elder, he took it seriously, displaying a powerful and overwhelming aura. The five elders, there really isn't a single simple person among them. And this is just the power of armament haki, isn't it? Summer's little face also became serious, and now the fourth elder's aura was more than twice as strong. Bang! The fourth elder's fist struck out, directly shattering the air around it, and came down with immense force. This punch made Sengoku, Garp, and Zephyr's pupils shrink. Its power is truly considerable. Will this small body be able to handle the summer? Kizaru Salino couldn't help but keep his powers ready to be activated at any moment, worried that Summer might not be able to withstand it and something unexpected might happen. However, Xia Tian neither dodged nor avoided the attack. Instead, she clenched her fist and struck first despite being the one who was behind. Second move. Shatter the sea. The two fists collided. Both of them possessed a high level of overpowered aura, and a wave of power rippled outwards. A powerful burst of air pressure erupted from the two of them, sending objects flying all over the room. But the next second, the true power of Xia Tian's fist began to erupt. The force of the punches only fully erupted at the point where their fists collided. The floor beneath their feet suddenly shattered and caved in. All the glass shattered, even the doors and windows of the power room were cracked and blown away. Vibration. The fourth elder's expression changed. This fist force was surprisingly similar to Whitebeard's devil fruit power. Even with all his armament haki, he couldn't withstand it. Snap! He took a step back and stepped directly onto a piece of floorboards at the edge of the sinkhole. Summer, however, remained firmly rooted to the spot. The difference in quality is immediately apparent. The other 4 members of the 5 elders, Sengoku, Garp, and the 3 admirals were all taken aback. They never expected that Xia Tian would gain the upper hand. How could such a small child's body contain such immense power? This was a direct confrontation that repelled the powerful 4th elder. Summer smiled and didn't continue the attack. This move, shattering the sea, is a combination of the 4 elders' physical combat techniques and previous moves. Good. The 4th elder's eyes were still somewhat shocked. Although he was not injured, his blood and chi were churning. The report from Sengoku just now was not an exaggeration. At the age of 8, Xia Tian undoubtedly already possesses the combat strength of a general. Genius. Truly gifted. At this age, wouldn't he be invincible just in terms of armament haki alone? Good, very good, excellent. We have granted you the position of general, and we have agreed to all your requests. You can take office immediately. The Grand Elder clapped his hands, his face full of approval. Summer immediately filled my heart with joy. Kizaru, Sengoku, Garp, and the others all smiled. The 4th Admiral in the Navy, and also the youngest Admiral in the world? That's it. I'd like to request an advance of 100 million, is that all right? Thinking about how he was about to unlock a new ability template, Xia Tian blinked his bright eyes and asked. Haha, of course, no problem. The 5 elders readily agreed. With the approval of the 5 elders, Xia Tian's appointment as general was completed smoothly, and he only needed to go back and wait. Holding the box containing 100 million berries, Summer happily returned to Marineford with Kizaru and the others. And in the distance, the 5 elders watched their retreating figures, lost in thought. Kizaru's family doesn't seem to have any special bloodlines, right? Unlikely. Based on CP's current information, Borsalino's family is not part of the D clan, and this summer it was confirmed that he is their biological son. His talent is terrifying. 8 years old, and he can already possess such powerful armament haki at the limit. His punches are incredibly powerful, with a unique punching force. Where does he get his physique from? Then let CP0 investigate again. In short, whatever the problems are, they're all under our watchful eyes. It's just the position of a general. I wonder what kind of expressions those sea monsters will have when they find out about an 8-year-old general. The 5 elders stood on the castle balcony, watching Summer's retreating figure, speaking to each other in turn. Chapter 8. Marineford. Inside the conference room. Congratulations, host, you have achieved 1 billion in-game currency spending. A new template will be unlocked soon. Summer, a young boy dressed in a suit, was drinking a beverage when a system notification flashed through his mind. Upon returning to Marineford, Summer immediately used up the 100 million berries in the box, achieving his goal. This naturally led to the activation of the primary-secondary ability template. Selecting randomly. In my mind, 3 templates are being automatically selected. Choose one of the following: Observation Haki, Conqueror's Haki, or various Devil Fruit ability templates. Congratulations, host! You have obtained the Conqueror's Haki template. The next phase of unlocking the capability template requires 10 billion. Ultimately, the second template was activated using Conqueror's Haki. Host, Xia Tian. Ability templates: Armament Haki, top level; Conqueror's Haki, intermediate level. Battle template: Akainu's physical techniques, the 4 elders' physical techniques. The main panel is very simple, just various templates available in summer. Upon seeing the random Conqueror's Haki template, Xia Tian couldn't help but feel a surge of joy. He activated Conqueror's Haki. His strength immediately increased dramatically. Conqueror's Haki, an essential aura for top-tier fighters. But this 10 billion, that's more than the combined bounty of 2 Yonko. Xia Tian thought to himself that he wasn't surprised by the consumption of the third template. He was even more excited when he thought about the Conqueror's haki surrounding him and the top combat power of Roger, Whitebeard, and others. The combination of Conqueror's haki and armament haki, the sum of the three types of haki, results in a significant increase in strength. After a long and arduous journey to debut in Bahai, it finally took almost a year to start the second template. As for money, 10 billion is not difficult, my body is only 8 years old, so I have plenty of time. With the template finalized, a power that seemed to have been dormant within him surfaced. Thankfully, the system doesn't let my aura show when I activate my ability templates, otherwise it would be quite funny. This summer is happening in Marineford, in the conference room of the Marine headquarters. There's old man Garp and the 3 admirals sitting in front of us. If he suddenly awakened his conqueror's haki, wouldn't that shock them to death? Hey little brother, you're about to be my equal, so tell the old folks about that later. Kizaru Salino had been all smiles the whole way, and seeing that Xia Tian seemed secretly pleased as well, he came over and said, "Brother, let's not talk about dad and mom, shall we?" To be honest, Xia Tian still didn't want the 2 elderly people to worry. Even if you don't speak up, the news of the appointment of the 4th Admiral will spread throughout the seas, and your photo will be published. You can't hide it anymore. Kizaru chuckled, crossing his legs in a very pleasant manner. Today is a good day. I never imagined that my genius younger brother would actually become a Navy Admiral. It wasn't a replacement between the 3 admirals, the world government made an exception and created a 4th Admiral. Including a salary of hundreds of millions, and even offering a minimum of 100 million, the 5 elders readily agreed, which shows they still value Xia Tian. When Xia Tian heard what Kizaru said, he realized that it made perfect sense. Just as I was about to say something, the Warring States Marshal arrived, followed by a group of lieutenant generals. More than 10 vice-admirals who could come, including Momonga, Anigamo, Kazakatsuyama, and Momuzagi, have all arrived. Inside the conference room, an extra chair had been added to the original 3 seats for the generals. Is everyone here? Let me introduce you. This is the one who sparred with Sakazuki in the plaza today. Summer, and also the protagonist of today's proclamation ceremony, our Navy's 4th Admiral. Child Emperor. The Warring States Marshal got straight to the point. He pointed at Summer, who was sitting quietly next to Kizaru, drinking a glass of orange juice. You can imagine the expressions on the faces of the lieutenant generals, they froze instantly, completely dumbfounded. Especially Lieutenant General Cha Tun, a candidate for general, his eyes practically popped out of their sockets. I was cut in line by an 8-year-old kid. Then, the Warring States Marshal began to describe Xia Tian's appointment as magistrate. From slaying pirates in the North Blue, to fighting Akainu, as all the vice-admirals know, to receiving approval from the 5 elders. The soldiers present were all shocked after hearing the whole story. Then came the inaugural document from the world government, and a custom-made general's uniform. 8 years old, over 1 meter tall, tailor-made. Soon. After Xia Tian declined the inauguration ceremony, the news spread like wildfire throughout the seas. In a short time, the 4th Admiral of the Navy, an 8-year-old boy, codenamed Child Emperor, especially his innocent appearance draped in a cloak of justice, quickly spread throughout the world. The New World. In the seas controlled by the 4 Emperors of the Sea. On a calm stretch of ocean. A pirate ship, resembling a giant whale, lay prone on the sea. This is the ship of one of the 4 Emperors, Whitebeard. The Moby Dick. Beneath the massive mast with its sails furled, there was a large chair. Known as the world's strongest man, Edward Newgate, with injections inserted into his body, propped up on his arm, looking somewhat agitated. His sons were also on the ship's deck, they were also notorious pirates. Marco, have a sip of the wine, just 1 sip. Whitebeard said with a hint of helplessness. No, Dad, you're on an 4 drip, and besides, your body can't handle alcohol for the next few days. Marco, with his pineapple-headed hair, refused without hesitation and without mercy. It's been a long time. Any news about Ace? Whitebeard Newgate looked reluctant and helpless, muttered something under his breath, and then asked a question. Not yet, it's the same message as last time, and we haven't received any news. Marco looked somewhat worried and said to Whitebeard. Dad, should I go out and look for Ace? I'm really worried about him. Jaws, Vista, and the others stepped forward and offered their suggestions. The longer they didn't hear from Ace, the more worried they became these past few days. No, let's wait and see. Whitebeard pondered for a moment and then shook his head. Just then, a bird sang. A seagull flew by and dropped a newspaper. Marco caught it, opened it, and was immediately startled. He looked as if he had seen something extraordinary. Dad, Dad, look, look! The Navy has gone mad. They actually appointed an 8-year-old as the 4th Admiral. Top-tier armament hacky. Chapter 9. A commotion erupted on the Moby Dick. Marco handed the newspaper to Whitebeard, and everyone crowded around him. Looking at the photo, the little boy in the summer has a smile on his face, wearing a miniature version of a general's coat. Girl la la. Warring States period, what are you doing? You're just an 8-year-old brat. Whitebeard Newgate narrowed his eyes, then burst into laughter. But deep down, I was filled with doubt. Buddha, an old rival of the Warring States period, naturally knew that this strategist was no foolish marshal. There might be something fishy going on here. Dad, look at the Navy's announcement. This kid doesn't have any special abilities, he mainly uses armament hacky. How could a child possibly cultivate top-tier armament hacky? It seems impossible, doesn't it? Could it be a celestial dragon? Vista and the other squad leaders found it unbelievable and started talking all at once. Everyone actually felt that the Navy was just creating a fuss this time. No, people from the Warring States period wouldn't act so rashly. Let's set aside these matters for now. The sea seems to be becoming increasingly turbulent. Let's first see if the people outside can find Ace. Whitebeard abruptly moved the newspaper aside and addressed the crowd. On the other side, the same thing was happening on Shank's ship. Lacharu, Yasop, and the others couldn't help but burst into laughter. Boss, is the Navy serious? An 8-year-old admiral, a child emperor. Beckman, why don't you try out the 4th Admiral's armament hacky next time you encounter him? On deck, most people dismissed the Navy's announcements, clearly seeing it as a blunder by the Navy. Shanks and Beckman didn't say much, but their eyes seemed to be deep in thought. Especially Shanks. He knew that the new general needed to be personally appointed by the 5 elders, and this 8-year-old child emperor who could sit in the position of general must not be underestimated. All right, everyone. The Navy isn't full of idiots. Be careful. Beckman lit a cigarette, looking somewhat helplessly at the laughing crowd. The New World, the land of harmony. Ghost Island. Quinn and Jack were laughing so hard they were clutching their stomachs, as if they had heard the biggest joke in the world. Humph! An 8-year-old boy appointed as an admiral. Is there no one else in the Navy? Kaido gulped down his wine, somewhat annoyed. The next second, he burst into laughter again. In that case, next time I'll personally kill your child Emperor General. Kaido was somewhat capricious, while his subordinates around him were all laughing heartily. Same. The last of the 4 emperors of the New World, the Queen of Whole Cake Island, and Big Mom are experiencing the same scene. Mom, isn't this a bit unusual? According to intelligence, this child emperor is Kizaru's younger brother. Katakuri entered the castle on Whole Cake Island and looked at Big Mom, who was laughing loudly, and said, well, to be elevated to the position of general during the Warring States period, one must have the strength, but so what? Big Mom didn't care what was so special about this admiral, and Kizaru's brother wasn't someone the four emperors feared. Katakuri nodded in agreement. Indeed, what difference does it make if the navy gains another admiral-level fighter? It's the same as always. The only ones who were intimidated were those below the four emperors. However, one faction actually received the news after the navy's meeting. That is the underground middleman, the king of Dressrosa, the captain of the Donquixote family, the heavenly demon, Doflamingo. In the palace hall, all the family executives were laughing heartily, and even Doflamingo himself was laughing. The five elders, Sengoku, what are you doing? Are you really letting an 8-year-old child sit on the throne of general? Doflamingo seemed to have finished laughing, so he picked up the bottle and started drinking. Others might not know, but Doflamingo did. The navy's tradition is to have 3 admirals. Power, strength, and so on are divided into 3 parts. The addition of a 4th general's seat is an exception by the 5 elders, allowing this 8-year-old boy named Summer to take the position. Kizaru is Borsalino's younger brother, and he has the strength to fight Akainu. Despite appearing indifferent, Doflamingo had actually already laid a trap for the world government and the navy. But he just couldn't seem to get involved with the young child emperor. If even the 4 emperors and the 7 warlords of the sea reacted this way, one can only imagine how other forces would react. Blackbeard and his crew were also laughing heartily on a small island. Captain Ace, did you see that? With the navy like this, what ability will they have to stop pirates in the future? With a mocking smile, Teach held up the newspaper to Ace, who was bound and gagged, and showed it to him. An 8-year-old admiral, the navy is getting more and more incompetent, bd ha ha ha. Ace was gagged, handcuffed with sea stone, and his eyes were filled with rage. Of course, not all factions are laughing at the navy's actions. Like Hawkeye my hawk, inside his dilapidated castle, solemnly looking at summer photos in the newspaper. His eyes, even in photos, don't look like those of an 8-year-old child. Extreme armament hacky. The navy only revealed this much of their ability, they're not simple. I must have a chance to spar with them sometime. My hawk swirled the wine in his glass, then downed it in one gulp. Meanwhile, Xia Tian was at her brother Kizaru's residence. I wonder what kind of reaction the news of my promotion to general would elicit around the world in just one day. He didn't care at all. Those who underestimate their age will pay the price. The templates and abilities have all been upgraded. The physical techniques template has been simulated, and the power of the first and second forms will be more stable and stronger. Xia Tian checked his own attributes before standing up. After taking office, there were no missions or tasks at the moment, and since he didn't have his own villa, Xia Tian simply stayed at Kizaru's villa in Marine Ford. There was no other way, the small houses were too crowded, and the general only had 3 villas. Just then, the sound of a den mushy, snail phone, rang out inside the villa. Summer followed the sound and finally found the den mushy that had been forgotten under the cabinet. Without a doubt, it's definitely a problem with that lecherous old man Kizaru, which is also why he often can't find the den mushy. As soon as the call connected, it turned out I needed to go to a meeting room. Summer's first task after taking office is here. At this time, Ace should have gone to find Blackbeard. I wonder if they've already captured him. In the summer, he donned his general's robes and headed straight out to the fortress. If Ace is captured, then the Marine Ford War won't be far off. Taking advantage of the chaos, I can also make a fortune. Chapter 10. There are many things to deal with this time, requiring all 4 of your generals to be mobilized. Inside the conference room, Marshal Zhang Guo looked at the 4 generals sitting before him and spoke with a serious expression. Whitebeard and Shanks have made contact again. This time, we need to send an admiral there just in case. Marshal D. Teach, who defected from Whitebeard's ship, wants to make a deal. This is also very important. Furthermore, according to reliable sources, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, Doflamingo, has a secret deal with Kaido, one of the 4 emperors. It involves artificial devil fruits. And the great pirate Shiki the Golden Lion, who escaped Impel Down over a decade ago, was defeated by the Straw Hat crew, but has now been captured again. We need an admiral to personally go and provide support, and escort him back. In one breath, Marshal Zhangguo briefed Xia Tian and the others on the situation. There really are 4 things. Summer pondered to himself, if Blackbeard teaches taking this so seriously as to send an admiral, then he must know that the bargaining chip is Fire Fist Ace from the Whitebeard pirates. Sakazuki, go to Doflamingo's side and stop this deal. Ideally, you should find something on Doflamingo that he's guilty of. Salino goes to Whitebeard's side to keep watch, Kuzan goes to bring Shiki back. In the summer, you go to Blackbeard's side to finalize the deal. This series of arrangements was made during the Warring States period. That makes sense. Akainu and Sakazuki are prone to fighting, so it's not suitable for them to go to Whitebeard's side, nor is it good for them to go to meet Shiki. Going to Doflamingo's side would be a good way to intimidate him. Kizaru's speed is fast enough to prevent any accidents from happening to him. Aokiji and Kuzan are perfect for escorting Shiki, freezing him is the safest option. As the newly appointed general, Xia Tian was assigned the easiest task, the simplest one. But Xia Tian thought it was too simple. Mr. Sengoku, this task is far too easy. As the new general, shouldn't I have a chance to prove myself? Summer raised her hand and said with a smile. If you go to Blackbeard's side, the pay for that job won't be high. The next phase of the system will cost a whopping 10 billion. Everyone looked at Xia Tian's raised little hand with a bit of a strange feeling, not quite used to having a child as a colleague. I'll go to Whitebeard's side and switch places with my brother. Summer offered her suggestions directly. If all you want is money, going to Blackbeard's side isn't a bad option, you might even get some berries if you try. However, the system will also make great progress in the summer when it fights against stronger opponents. Moreover, it's difficult, but the payout is high, making it a win-win situation. Little brother, are you sure you can go? Kizaru wasn't too keen on his younger brother going to Whitebeard's side, as that would be a clash between the world's strongest man and one of the 4 emperors, Shanks. Clearly, the Warring States period also had this in mind. My abilities are evident to you all, brother. I'm confident I can complete the mission. Summer grinned, raised her fist, and gestured that I was strong. I think it's feasible for Child Emperor to go. Akainu Sakazuki glanced at Xia Tian and agreed with his suggestion. Summer is indeed very strong, and he needs this opportunity to prove his strength and prestige to the world. This also concerns the Navy's reputation. The tacit ridicule from various powers cannot be hidden. There are even some dissenting voices within the Navy. That's fine, but please be careful. Sengoku glanced at Akainu and understood what he meant. Kizaru shrugged and didn't say anything more. A true man should venture out to the sea. My younger brother has the ability, he should silence the world's dissent. Then it's settled. Sengoku saw that Kizaru and Salino didn't object, so he agreed. Having witnessed Xia Tian's strength in confronting the 4th elder, he said no more and immediately appointed Xia Tian to go. That, the reward for the job. Summer coughed lightly, her voice still childish, as if hinting at something. Sengoku was taken aback for a moment, then smiled. I almost forgot, this little guy charges money for his services. How many do you want? 2 Yonko, and Whitebeard is hailed as the strongest man. 5 billion berries, mission successfully completed. Summer's eyes light up immediately when money is mentioned. Upon hearing this price, both Aokiji and Kizaru choked on their tea. That's outrageous. 5 billion. I'd think you went and captured Whitebeard. The bounties for the 4 emperors are only around 5 billion, that's too high. About 1 billion, that's about right. The Warring States Marshal, however, seemed to have mentally prepared himself for this, and he calmly negotiated the price. Those are 2 Yonko, Emperors of the Sea. A fight between them would be exhausting for me. What if both of them were to fight me? 4 billion would be reasonable. Goodness, Xia Tian doesn't act like a little kid at all, she's more like a shrewd businessman starting to haggle. The 3 generals listened with puzzled expressions. The 4 emperors were too embarrassed to gang up on you because of your small stature. One price, 2.5 billion. This trip is only to prevent an accident and avoid direct confrontation, not to let you go up and start fighting. How about that? This price is very reasonable, Xia Tian. The Warring States Marshal said with a smile. Make a deal. Upon arriving here, Xia Tian didn't haggle over the price and immediately agreed. 2.5 billion, that's already a quarter of it. It wouldn't be appropriate to continue, since I was the one who requested to join Whitebeard's side. Very well, the warships are ready. The journey is long, so you may depart immediately. Sengoku smiled and nodded, concluding the mission meeting. A sea breeze was blowing, and the calm sea began to ripple. The Moby Dick lay motionless on the sea, its white-bearded skull and crossbones banner fluttering in the wind. Still no sign of Ace. I have a bad feeling. Whitebeard Newgate was no longer on an 4 drip, but he still had some medical equipment attached to him. Whitebeard appeared somewhat unsettled at this moment. Dad, we've been sending people out these past few days to look for news of Ace, but there's still no feedback. Marco frowned, also looking worried. Report. Suddenly, the lookout ran over shouting. Dad! Red-haired Shank's ship is back. It's getting close. They're signaling for Red-haired to come aboard our ship. Marco, Vista, Jaws, and the others all changed their expressions upon hearing this. Redhead's going to board the ship. The cotters exchanged glances. The last contact didn't involve a direct meeting on the ship. Why is Shanks doing this time? Shanks, the red-haired man, looked at the large ship not far away, picked up his griffin sword, and prepared to board the ship alone. Don't worry, Whitebeard will be fine. Red-haired Shanks stood at the bow of the ship and spoke to the worried Yasopp and the others behind him. Suddenly, just as the 2 sides drew near. Oh no, boss, a warship is approaching. It's the candidate for Admiral Momuzagi, and a little brat, who is the new Admiral, Child Emperor. Chapter 11. I'm surprised, Yasopp said, holding the binoculars. This surprised even Shanks, who was originally planning to board Whitebeard's ship. Admiral, Child Emperor, and Momuzagi. It just appeared like that. This is a clash between 2 Yonko, Emperors of the Sea. Aren't they afraid of being attacked and sunk? The Redfords slowly came to a stop. The Whitebeard pirates also noticed the warship that wasn't keeping its distance at all, but instead sailing directly towards them. Dad, it's the Navy Admiral, that 8-year-old boy, Child Emperor. Marco examined the object closely through the binoculars, then frowned and spoke. They haven't slowed down at all, do they want to start a war? The other squad leaders also looked surprised. They couldn't possibly be unaware that 2 of the 4 Emperor's pirate crews were here, could they? Gururera, Child Emperor? Interesting. Whitebeard looked interested, but didn't get up, remaining seated in the large chair. A general from the Warring States period, who had become a laughingstock for a time, has appeared. I'd like to see what's so special about him. On a warship. Momuzagi and the Marines behind her looked at Natsumiya with some surprise. Admiral Child Emperor, are we really going to sail over there? These aren't ordinary pirates. One of the naval soldiers said with some fear. Although this young admiral displayed terrifying strength along the way, he would directly attack any pirate he encountered, sinking them with a single punch from a distance. But this is no joke, there are 2 pirate ships ahead, one belonging to Whitebeard and the other to Shanks. Of course, our mission is to prevent Whitebeard and Shanks from meeting. They're already close together, so of course we have to stop them. In the summer, wearing round sunglasses, a neat suit jacket, and a righteous overcoat, he stood incredibly handsome at the bow of the ship. Compared to the worried Momuzagi-jun and the somewhat frightened Marines, Natsume looked relaxed, but was actually eager to try it out. Even without strong observation haki, one could sense an extraordinary monster on the ship ahead simply by using their physical senses. Fighting against such a powerful opponent will undoubtedly make you stronger. Moreover, Shanks is a master swordsman, and Whitebeard is incredibly strong even without his devil fruit powers. Summer has long wanted their physical combat style. Then, under the somewhat surprised gazes of the two Yonko pirate crews, the warship sailed over and stood directly between the two Yonko. "Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Xiaotian, Admiral." Summer stood at the bow of the warship, politely greeting the pirates on both sides. Marco, Vista, Yozu, Shanks, Beckman, Yasop, and others all looked at them with some strange expressions. What's going on? Is this handsome little boy serious? What's with the fact that he seems so polite and well-behaved? Oh, by the way, to avoid any unforeseen circumstances, neither of you should have contact. After exchanging greetings in the summer, without waiting for either side to speak, he directly stated his purpose. "Can't touch." Shanks laughed. This kid is really funny. How could the Sengoku commander trust him and Momuzagi to come and stop them? "Little friend, this is not the time for jokes. I need to speak to Whitebeard in person. Could you please make way for my brother?" Shanks, the red-haired man, looked at Summer in front of him with a friendly expression. "No." Summer directly refused, making her stance clear. This made the naval officers and soldiers behind him swallow hard. Hey, who's not afraid of facing two Yonko-level pirate crews? Shanks was also speechless, and glanced at it helplessly. "Boss, we have no choice but to take down the navy first." Yasop and the others shrugged and said. Indeed, when faced with such childish behavior, the child Emperor General would have to suffer some consequences. "Jaws, go and make that brat move aside." Whitebeard Newgate stood up and walked step by step to the side of the ship, with an arrogant expression that seemed to look down on the world. She glanced at Summer, then stared straight at Shanks. Summer looked up and gazed at the scene. This giant, over 8 meters tall, bears battle scars from years of battles, and exudes an undeniable aura of dominance. Whitebeard. A glint flashed in Xiaotian's eyes. She had admired this man since her past life, and now that she had seen him in person and even had the chance to fight him, she couldn't help but feel excited. But Whitebeard didn't really take Summer seriously at this moment. Instead, he was looking at Shanks, the red-haired man with a black cloak, opposite him. You should also go and ask Child Emperor to leave." When Whitebeard appeared, Shanks' conqueror's haki began to show. An aura of innate kingship began to emanate from him, drawing comparisons to Newgate with his white beard. "Yes, Dad." "Yes, Boss." Yozu and Lacharu, who were opposite him, obeyed and stepped forward to look at Summer. "Hey, kid, did you hear me? You'd better get out of here right now. You, as a mere general, cannot prevent 2 of the 4 emperors from meeting." The 2 men each uttered a sentence, and then jumped directly towards the warship in the middle. The naval soldiers and Momuzagi immediately prepared to attack. "What if I don't leave?" Xiaotian watched as the 2 men stood on either side of the warship's railing, then waved his hand to stop his men from firing. "If you don't leave, we'll have to take action." Jaws shook his head helplessly. "I thought to myself, this kid is just a kid, why is he so clueless?" Pirates show no mercy to the Marines. Upon hearing this, Xiaotian grinned. These guys won't take their child's body seriously unless they show some strength. Bang! Suddenly, a whooshing sound rang out. Summer didn't bother to say anything, and arrived in front of Lacharu at lightning speed, throwing a small fist covered in red cherry blossoms. The air formed a visible white stream around the little fist, rushing towards it at incredible speed. Lacharu was still chewing on the meat in his hand, completely treating Summer like a child, and was a little careless. By the time he reacted and activated armament haki to defend his arm, he was directly smashed away by Summer's immense strength. It's like being struck by a heavy hammer while standing in the middle of a giant clock. A dull thud. The meat in Lacharu's hand flew out of his hand, an irresistible force spread from his arm throughout his entire body. He flew back upside down the same way he came. The sudden turn of events startled everyone. Neither the members of the two pirate crews nor the soldiers on the warships expected Xia Tian to make a move so suddenly. As Lacharu's obese body flew backward rapidly, unable to control its trajectory. "That's Lucky Roo," one of the top officers of the red-haired pirates. "He was just knocked away like that?" Chapter 12. Jaws, from another direction, gritted his teeth. Was this considered a sneak attack? No, right? Lackey didn't react in time because Child Emperor's speed was simply too fast. You. The next moment, before Jaws could finish speaking, his eyes wide open, he saw Xia Tian turn back. It changed direction at an incredible angle and without slowing down, charging straight at me. A tiny fist kept growing larger in front of her, indicating that she had already reacted and her body quickly began to diamondize. Shine. Charge. But when Summer's black fist, imbued with armament haki, slammed down, more than half of the man's body, who usually wore an angry expression, had turned into diamonds. With a powerful stomp, the warship's railing shattered instantly, and the man, without dodging or avoiding, charged straight at Xia Tian with his shoulder. When Summer's little fist collided with Yozu's, a terrifying force exploded instantly. The deck exploded, shattering and overturning piece by piece. The collision of forces produced a dull sound that reverberated through the vibrating air. Some of the nearby sailors were knocked back and fell by the impact of their collision. Fortunately, this was a specially designed warship with an exceptionally robust structure, so it didn't disintegrate completely, only a large hole was cracked in the deck. Diamond Jaws, truly lives up to his name. Summer hadn't expected Yozu's strength to be so great. No wonder that in one piece, a huge block of ice could be thrown and cause Aokiji to bleed. That punch was actually blocked. Compared to the unexpected event in the summer, Jaws himself was even more taken aback. He was perfectly aware of how strong his impact was. One of the strongest men in the Whitebeard pirates. Even after using a dazzling charge, he still couldn't push away that tiny fist. Summer did not continue to fight them. After all, this was not on land, and in order to intimidate the two Emperor-level pirate crews, she had to win with an overwhelming advantage. One move, to suppress the mountain. In an instant, the little fist that was touching the diamond changed. The force has changed. Ripples of force spread out from his fist, and a surging, wave-like punch erupted. Bang! This is a secondary exertion of force without any physical movement. Even the red-haired and white-bearded men's eyes narrowed. This is definitely not a fighting technique that an 8-year-old could learn. Instantly, Yozu, just like Lacharu, lost control of his body and was sent flying back by the force of the mountain-suppressing fist. Red-haired Shanks, Whitebeard Newgate and their respective ships' officers all exchanged a change of expression. What overwhelming power! However, all of this happened very quickly, in just a few seconds. Even Lacharu, who was initially knocked away, is still unaccounted for. Seeing that the two who had been knocked away were flying an unknown distance, Marco and Beckman stepped in and caught Yozu and Lacharu. However, upon sensing the power emanating from them, their expressions turned serious. Summer is not as simple as they imagined. His immense power, along with his skill in controlling it, suggests that this child emperor is no ordinary person. These two punches completely shocked the people on both Whitebeard's and Shank's sides. At this moment, everyone had put away their contempt and looked solemnly at the young figure on the warship whose deck was badly damaged. This isn't a child, this is the 4th Admiral of the Navy. Child Emperor. Gurula La. Newgate, with his white beard, seemed quite interested in Summer. Red-haired Shanks also looked at Summer with a serious expression. As expected of the 4th-ranked general, it seems we underestimated him. They can't be treated like children at all, Shanks could tell. The armament haki covering Xia Tian's hands was noticeably excessively powerful. The force of the punch, which even Diamond Yozua couldn't withstand, was something that Lacharu's body couldn't absorb. He's very strong in physical combat. The maximum power gained has been increased. Gained increased maximum stamina. One punch from each person, and Xia Tian's internal system immediately issued a notification. The brief process yielded no physical technique templates, and these limits only slightly improved Xia Tian's abilities. But without a doubt, when fighting powerful opponents, the potential for improvement is significantly higher. Again. Diamond Yozua and Lacharu were clearly upset that they had been punched away by an 8-year-old. I took a deep breath and prepared to jump over again. Both of them gritted their teeth, wanting to go up and fight again. However, they were both stopped. It's Marco on Whitebeard's ship, and Beckman on Shank's ship. Hey, Jaws, this guy's not simple. Let me give him a try. Marco walked forward solemnly, leaped directly onto the ship, and blue flames erupted from his body, revealing the form of a phoenix. They pounced on Summer. Its half-beast phoenix claws were covered with intense armament haki, and it grabbed at Xia Tian. Meanwhile, on Shank's side, Beckman, with a cigarette dangling from his lips, stopped Lacharu and jumped over without saying a word. You guys really are. Isn't this enough? Seeing that neither of the two emperors had made a move, Xia Tian said helplessly. Momuzagi, standing beside him, thought that Natsumi meant that the strength he had shown was not enough to make them stop, but what Natsumi actually meant was, why haven't the 4 emperors made a move yet? One move, to suppress the mountain. His figure vanished from the deck. Xia Tian leaped up, clenched his fist, and armament haki flowed through his arm like cherry blossoms. It was used again to suppress the mountain. Moreover, it wasn't just a simple burst of punching power, it was a complete mountain-suppressing attack. At that moment, a powerful aura erupted, causing both Whitebeard and Shanks to change their expressions and become somewhat solemn. After fusing with the Zhenshan technique, Xia Tian is now using it more than once, and by coordinating his movements and mobilizing his body's power, its effectiveness has become even greater. Phoenix, The fist was thrown directly at Marco in mid-air, and when it was fully extended, it struck Marco's body, which was engulfed in blue flames. Marco was immediately shocked, he never expected Summer to be so fast. The sonic boom didn't reach Marco's ears until the fist grew larger and larger in front of him. Summer didn't want to continue the fight, his targets were the 2 Yonko, Whitebeard, and Shanks. Only by engaging with them can we achieve maximum progress, and we cannot initiate attacks, otherwise these officers and captains will definitely block our way. And so, Marco was in trouble. Summer swept in at breakneck speed, and the world seemed to slow down in his eyes. Xiaoqing, with a smile on her face, threw a punch that created immense pressure in the air, until it landed solidly on her shoulder. Boom! The powerful waves rippled outwards, creating a strong airflow. The blue flames on Marco's shoulder were extinguished by the armament haki accompanying the punch, and his body flew backward like a cannonball. Chapter 13. Marco. Vista was shocked and lunged forward to catch Marco, using tremendous strength to do so. Marco fell onto the deck and rolled several times. Marco looked pained, the bones in his shoulder were slightly dislocated, and even with the Phoenix's abilities, he couldn't recover for the time being. It's important to understand that Marco's abilities are beyond what can be achieved simply by applying armament haki. Even Whitebeard's pupils contracted when he saw this scene, and he turned his head solemnly to look at Summer, who was preparing to attack Beckman. Everyone else, including the executives on Shank's side, was greatly alarmed. Such immense power! Such powerful armament haki! Shanks, with his keen eye, immediately saw how terrifying Summer was. Especially the domineering techniques, which are used to a level that is completely beyond what an 8-year-old child could achieve. This is a penetrating attack, and even a temporary suppression ability after the attack ends. Obtain the Phoenix Marco Combat Martial Arts template. Gain maximum stamina. Gain maximum power. Gain brief airtime and rapid healing abilities. Xiaoqing unleashed his own techniques with this punch, and Marco even used the Phoenix's power, resulting in Xiaoqing gaining a significant advantage from a single blow. As expected of the captain of the First Division, he'll improve his strength considerably if the fight continues. Having gained all this, Xiaotian smiled to herself. Marco's strength is not as great as Yozu's, but his overall strength is greater. Moreover, combat acquisition isn't limited to physical skill templates, special characters like Marco also acquire these minor abilities. In the blink of an eye, Xiaotian stepped forward and turned around, using the brief airtime ability he had just acquired. He charged straight at Beckman, who had just jumped in. Ben Beckman, the rumored closest to the four emperors, incredibly powerful. Summer watched Beckman leap through the air and knew how powerful he was, so without hesitation, he delivered another devastating punch. Seeing the small fist attacking him, crackling with armament haki, Beckman's pupils contracted. With his powerful observation haki and strength approaching that of a Yonko, he controlled his body and turned around, barely dodging Xiaotian's punch. But it was almost just the outer layer of armament haki that grazed past Beckman's body. Beckman was also taken aback. He hadn't expected Xiaotian to be able to unleash such speed in the air. After turning, Beckman didn't even think. He drew his pistol from his waist as he turned and fired a shot at Xiaotian. A flash of light erupted from the muzzle of the gun. The bullet, imbued with armament haki and conqueror's haki, broke through its original destructive power and spun as it shot forward. This thrilling mid-air confrontation drew gasps of amazement from the crowd. He knocked Marco away, twisted and accelerated in mid-air, threw a punch, and then Beckman dodged and drew his gun to fire. It's understandable that Beckman has this fighting spirit, but for an 8-year-old child emperor to act like a seasoned fighter is unbelievable. However, Xiaotian did not expect Beckman to be so powerful. Although his speed was not as close to the speed of sound as when he fought Marco, he still managed to achieve this. But it wasn't slow either, especially since the two were charging at each other, and Beckman managed to twist his body to dodge the punch. He truly deserves to be called the strongest Yonko vice president. His strength is almost on par with that of the four emperors. But the next moment, Xiaotian clenched his fist and grabbed directly in front of him. With terrifying grip strength and top-notch armament haki, he directly crushed the aura surrounding the bullet and caught it in his palm. In an instant, the bullet collided with the armament haki in Xiaotian's hand, sparking a burst of light. Moreover, the bullet, enhanced by Beckman's conqueror's haki, possessed an even greater impact force. But Xiaotian still managed to grab it without batting an eye. Holy crap! Really? Yasop, Lucky Roo, and the rest of the red-haired pirates were stunned. Everyone knows the strength of Beckman's bullets. And yet, Child Emperor caught them with his tiny hand? Red-haired Shanks was extremely serious, his pupils shrinking. Even when I'm playing against Beckman, I wouldn't dare to grab him with my hands. The imposing aura attached to it isn't enough to pierce me. Summer smiled proudly, gripped the bullet firmly in her small hand, and then tossed it. Beckman was taken aback when he saw Xiaotian casually toss the bullet away, and his expression was somewhat shocked. Are you kidding me? The imposing aura above isn't enough to penetrate. This. Beckman didn't know how to react. The shock did not affect Beckman's fighting spirit. He immediately adjusted his angle and, with lightning speed, aimed at Xia Tian and fired. Bang bang bang! He fired several shots, emptying the gun completely. Summer's eyes narrowed. She hadn't activated her observation haki or awakened her self-awareness, but relying on her body's natural reflexes, she used her brief ability to stay airborne to approach Beckman while dodging him. In the sky, the sound of air being pounded was accompanied by gunshots. Moonwalk, combined with brief periods of airtime, makes it very agile in the summer. But ultimately, bite. One bullet still managed to hit Xia Tian. These bullets, which would leave a large hole even on a natural-type body, struck Xia Tian and sparked. The round bullet flattened out without breaking through Xia Tian's armament haki defense. Its impact was considerable, causing Xia Tian to feel a slight pain. Although he hesitated for a moment, he was already close to Beckman. Beckman reacted quickly, attempting to use a movement technique similar to the Navy's 6 styles moonwalk to create distance by stepping on the air. But by then it was completely too late. Second move. Shatter the sea. Summer threw a direct punch with his right fist. The Ryuo armament haki exploded, causing a vertical red light to emanate from the fist. Beckman's pupils contracted in pain, realizing he didn't have time to dodge. Based on his observation haki prediction, his right fist was also directly covered with armament haki and Conqueror's haki, attempting to counter with an attack. The first lieutenant's strength goes far beyond just guns. However, at the very moment his fist collided with Summers, Beckman's eyes revealed utter horror. The force of Shattering Sea's punch carried a strong vibration, like circular waves rippling through the air, with rolling air currents, unlike the previous one which had a 1-second delay. Everyone looked up and saw a burst of visible white, gaseous ripples, accompanied by a deafening roar. This second form is even more powerful. With a loud bang, Beckman's arm went numb, and the domineering aura on his fist dissipated, sending him flying. It crashed straight into the sea, raising the entire surface of the ocean. The huge, circular wave was shaken and broken into tiny water droplets by the force of the Shattering Sea fist. This is the manifestation of the power of Xia Tian's Shattering the Sea punch. Chapter 14. Gained Stamina Boost. Gained Power Boost. Gain Enhanced Precision Control. Obtain the Ben Beckman gun technique template. Summer's mind was filled with various system notifications, and a smile crept onto her lips before slowly settling down. Everyone was blown by the strong wind from where the two men clashed, their faces filled with shock. Holy crap! What did I just see? Beckman was sent flying with a single punch. On the warship, Momozagi's eyes flashed with excitement, while the other soldiers were even more shocked beyond belief. An 8-year-old child Emperor General. Is he really that powerful? Marco, that's surprising enough. That's Beckman, whose strength is almost on par with the 4 emperors. Rumor has it that its observation haki is even more terrifying. It was just like that, sent flying into the sea. The 2 Yonko pirate crews were utterly shocked, exchanging bewildered glances. Being a marine admiral isn't something you can just take on casually. This child emperor, his physical skills are definitely stronger than the other 3 admirals, right? Baista and the others were extremely solemn, recalling the uproarious laughter they had received back then, and now they were completely proven wrong. On the opposite side, Lacris, Yasop, and the others stared in shock and silence at Beckman, who finally emerged from the water after a long while, all turning their gazes toward Shanks. Boss, what do you suggest we do? This guy isn't a little kid. A monster disguised as a child. Shanks's seriousness was no longer concealed, it was also a confirmation of his judgment at the time. The 5 elders would never be so bored as to just pick a random child to scare people. This summer, Child Emperor is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Gururera, kid, you're pretty good at both fighting and strength. Whitebeard Newgate narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at Summer with a rare expression of praise. This is probably the first time such a person has appeared on the high seas, isn't it? 8 years old. Whether it was myself at 8 or Charlotte Linlin at 8, neither could compare to this summer. Even among all the known geniuses on the high seas, no one has reached this level at this age. Their future is limitless, and their potential is even more unpredictable. Summer has demonstrated formidable strength, which is evident to all. Now, both of the 4 emperors are not only taking him seriously, but are treating him with utmost solemnity. Child Emperor, please give me some face and we won't fight. I really have something important to discuss with Whitebeard today. Even Beckman lost, and Shanks directly asked Summer to give him some face. After all, with 2 of the 4 emperors here, and so many people, it's not like they're scared off by Summer. Summer, however, stood at the bow of the boat, hands clasped behind her back. Her small frame made this gesture seem like an attempt to project maturity. Summer curled her lip upon hearing Shanks' words. A big deal? It's just the link between the era of Rampage, Blackbeard teach. It's useless, Whitebeard won't listen to your advice. Don't bother. It's more dangerous for you 4 emperors to come into contact. What if you secretly join forces and plot something? Summer's words revealed the important matter that Shanks wanted to discuss with Whitebeard. Instantly, Shanks and Beckman, who had just stumbled ashore and was looking at Summer in astonishment, wondering how he knew. The other members of the red-haired pirates were even more surprised. This is just a speculation by the boss and Beckman, it might not be true. Could he read minds? The Whitebeard pirates were also puzzled by this scene. This young general actually knows something? He even mentioned that traitor teach. Whitebeard Newgate, however, kept his eyes fixed on Summer. Sigh, well, there's nothing we can do about it then, we have to give it a try. Red-haired Shanks sighed. A gang fight? As one of the 4 emperors, he couldn't bring himself to do that. He hadn't originally planned to deal with a child, but it was clear this wasn't a child, but a naval admiral, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. A crisp sound of the sword being drawn rang out. Red-haired Shanks drew the griffin from his waist, and as haki swirled around it, the entire blade turned black. The Yonko, possessing the strongest conqueror's haki, revealed his violent side at this moment. The air itself was filled with oppressive force, most people would probably faint if they stood within a certain range of Shanks. The 4 emperors have made their move. Summer suddenly felt a surge of excitement. The brief encounter with Marco, Beckman, and the other 3 resulted in a significantly higher level of improvement compared to the previous efficiency of killing pirates. If it weren't for the worry that he wouldn't have the stamina to handle so many people, he would have fought them all one by one in the summer. And now, the 4 emperors are finally going to fight him. Red-haired Shanks unleashed his power, his figure vanishing from his original spot as he slashed at Xia Tian with his sword. Shanks, one of the 4 emperors, has taken the initiative. The sword, imbued with Conqueror's haki, exploded with power, and bolts of lightning, also imbued with Conqueror's haki, crashed down. This made Momuzagi and the soldiers on the warship tense up, their hearts filled with shock. This is the emperor that even the marine headquarters fears. This is the great pirate that even Fleet Admiral Sengoku, Garp, and the 3 admirals are unwilling to easily confront. These are the 4 emperors, their aura is completely different from the others before them. Xia Tian was secretly delighted. The 4 emperors were indeed the 4 emperors, their mere presence alone was extraordinary. It's good that you are willing to help, I was just afraid you wouldn't. He kept his thoughts to himself, but his hands remained calm and focused. The powerful armament haki swirled around Xia Tian's fist, and what made even Whitebeard's expression change was the wisps of red and black haki lightning on Xia Tian's hand. His fist was also imbued with Conqueror's haki. With overwhelming force, Shanks unleashed a thunderous slash with a single arm. Summer leaped from the warship, the immense impact creating a tremendous sound, and his punch was delivered with unparalleled force. A punch and a knife clashed directly. Sizzle! The blade clashed with the fist in mid-air. The terrifying, oppressive aura exploded like tangible lightning, densely packed and sweeping across the entire area. As the red and black conqueror's haki clashed, everyone present stared in astonishment. The navy surged up huge waves, and the thick clouds in the sky seemed to be torn apart. Even the light dimmed, and this vast area of the sea was shrouded in strange phenomena. This is a clash of conquerors' haki. How is this possible? An 8-year-old boy, and a naval admiral. He. The potential of a king. How could an 8-year-old admiral in the navy possibly awaken conquerors' haki? The 4th admiral of the navy actually possesses conquerors' haki. And he can even use it. The white-beard pirates, the red-haired pirates, even Momuzagi-jun and the marines were all stunned. Momuzagi, in particular, was utterly shocked. Such terrifying power erupted. Such terrifying pressure. What else could this be but a clash of conquerors' haki? And can a marine admiral awaken conquerors' haki? Chapter 15. In the entire navy, aside from Fleet Admiral Sengoku, the man at the very top, who might awaken conquerors' haki, how could an admiral possibly do so? As a naval officer, does he really want to be some kind of king? An innate ability. Even a powerful figure like Whitebeard Newgate had a very serious expression on his face. An 8-year-old who can use conqueror's haki and is a top-tier armament haki user is beyond comprehension. While nothing is impossible on the high seas, this, combined with all of Xia Tian's actions at this time, is truly astonishing. It has to be said that Summer's potential in Whitebeard's mind has risen to a new level. With his conqueror's haki swirling around him, Child Emperor has already stepped one foot into the ranks of peak powerhouses. Shanks, the one-armed swordsman wielding a sword and struggling against Summer, was filled with disbelief. Who exactly are you? An 8-year-old general who possesses conqueror's haki. The implications are truly terrifying. Could it be, he really is a celestial dragon? Or not Kizaru's brother? Summer witnessed Shank's incredible feat and had nothing more to say. Gained stamina. Power gained increased. Gained agility. Gained increased proficiency in conqueror's haki. Obtain the Shank's swordsmanship combat template. In just one collision, Xia Tian's system notifications started popping up like crazy. Moreover, the so-called improvement felt like it was greater than the improvement of everyone else before. Truly worthy of being one of the 4 emperors. It's a pity there's no concrete data to show this. Summer's improved skills filled me with joy. Shanks, holding his sword down, could clearly feel that Summer's resistance was getting stronger and stronger. He's making progress. Red-haired Shank's eyes widened in utter shock. What on earth was this overwhelming, palpable power? They immediately decided to stop this confrontation. With a flip, the two of them each moved back a little in the air. Both of them used leg techniques similar to moonwalk to gain momentum in mid-air. There were actually no footholds below except for the boats. Moreover, it's not difficult for strong individuals to use the air as a fulcrum for leverage. Shanks, for example, does just that. With a stomp on the air, the compressed air exploded with a sound, and Shanks adjusted his position, swinging his sword to attack again. With a single move, Griffin unleashed a massive blade of light that sliced across half the sky. The naval soldiers below, as well as the rookies and young men from the 2 major pirate crews, all stared in disbelief at the outrageous scene. Summer possesses the ability to briefly hang in the air, and when faced with blades flashing from all directions, she twists her body and throws out another punch. The surging fist force was like a shockwave, clashing with the blade's gleam with a powerful vibration. As the force of the fist and the flash of the blade silently neutralized each other, the fist and the long sword continued their advance. Bang! The blade clashed with the fist. A crisp metallic sound rang out. Then, a terrifying aftershock erupted, sweeping across the entire battlefield. Both sides exuded conqueror's haki, causing the young people to feel dizzy and disoriented, and some even fainted from the strain. A battle at the level of the four emperors is not something that ordinary people can watch live. Whether it's Momuzagi-jun and the Marines, or the red-haired pirates and the white-beard pirates. Everyone was utterly shocked. The 8-year-old child emperor was able to fight Shanks, one of the four emperors who had been famous for several years, to such an evenly matched level, displaying immense power. As the two sides rapidly engaged in a breathtaking exchange of blows. With techniques reminiscent of Akainu's, the Four Elders, and even Shanks' swordsmanship, Summer was in no way inferior in skill, fiercely exchanging blows with Shanks using a variety of stances and moves. This gave Shanks, who had rarely fought since gaining the title of one of the four emperors, a sense of exhilaration in battle. His opponent, however, was a child who was just over a meter tall, which seemed rather strange. And so, whether on the warship or in mid-air, the two fought for a long time, until a sonic boom, the clang of blades, the muffled sounds of clashing forces, and the thunderous roar of their powerful auras colliding violently. Summer unleashed a punch that shattered the sea, and Shanks deflected it with his blade, causing the sea surface within his line of sight to explode from Summer's punch. The water droplets seemed to float in the air without gravity, creating an incredibly stunning scene. The second form of the sea-shattering technique, enhanced with Conqueror's haki, truly looked like a punch that shattered the ocean. Shanks sidestepped and unleashed a slash of his own, the massive blade of light carrying terrifying force cleaving the sea in two, creating a huge, bottomless chasm. The two men's terrifying fighting power was beyond human capability, their punches and blades nearly struck the Moby DK and the fourth on either side. This meant that Marco and others, along with Beckman and other executives, had to intervene frequently to prevent it from happening. The warships below were struggling to hold on. Momuzagi occasionally managed to resist the aftershocks, while the others were stunned and somewhat swayed, feeling helpless. This battle is absolutely terrifying. Fortunately, Summer and Redhead did avoid ships to some extent. Child Emperor, this monster is getting stronger the more he fights. Ben Beckman was increasingly shocked and deeply moved as he looked at the document. The crew of the red-haired ship, including Yasop and Lacru, were completely dumbfounded. There aren't many people who can fight the boss like this. The four emperors of the sea, Hawkeye my Hawk, Marine Garp, and others. How many are there in total? This child emperor actually possesses such fighting power. Warring States period, where did they find such a rare genius? No, a monster. Whitebeard Newgate also showed a hint of shock on his face. Dad, with this kind of strength, is he really only 8 years old? Marco clutched his shoulder, his eyes filled with disbelief. Child Emperor's punch just now, wasn't it with full force, yet it still managed to injure him like this? Red-haired boy, if this keeps going, you won't be a match for Child Emperor. Although Red Boy's Conqueror's haki is much stronger, his armament haki is inferior. Child Emperor is also becoming increasingly formidable in battle. Whitebeard Newgate, in front of Marco and the others, suddenly spoke with great certainty. If he hadn't lost his arm back then, Shanks might have been able to catch up with him by now. Marco, Vista, Yozu, and the other division captains were all dumbfounded and utterly astonished by Whitebeard Newgate's words. The world's strongest man actually made this assessment of Child Emperor? If they continue fighting, will Shanks be the one to lose? He's only 8 years old. And he's already this amazing. Where did the Navy find someone like this? What will happen in a few years? No one dared to think any further, it was too terrifying. On the 4th, owned by Shanks. Beckman watched as the battle intensified, and Summer continued to grow stronger. Boss! Let's attack together! Beckman put down his guns, matches, and cigarettes, and with a grim expression, he was about to join forces with Shanks to take down Summer. He also noticed Xia Tian's terrifying talent and felt worried. Chapter 16. No. Beckman. This is a duel between men. No one is allowed to interfere. Red-haired Shanks' eyes blazed with domineering aura as his sword clashed with Summer's iron fist. He suddenly turned around and stopped him. The sea winds raged fiercely over the battleground, the ocean surged with towering waves, ships rocked precariously, and the sky was a hazy grey with broken clouds. Shanks was utterly shocked, and his attitude towards Summer had completely changed. Upon hearing the word duel, Beckman paused, then silently withdrew his hand. Boom! At this moment, the combined force of the two collisions erupted completely, causing another huge wave to surge and the warship to rock violently. Momuzagi and many other marines steadied themselves to avoid being blown away by the strong air currents, resisting the overwhelming power of the conqueror's haki from both sides, their expressions filled with utter horror. This is the clash between Child Emperor and the Four Emperors. The soldiers, one by one, held onto the fixed objects on the warship, somewhat flustered. When will this fighting ever end? The warships are practically falling apart. Bang! At this moment, Summer landed back at the bow of the warship, looking at Shanks in midair with his long sword griffin raised, his eyes filled with fanaticism. That was awesome! Fighting a Yonko, Emperor of the Sea, was way faster than leveling up through a year of hunting. Summer was overjoyed as she watched the constantly flashing system notifications. Not only did he gain a significant boost in physical strength, but he also acquired Shanks' formidable swordsmanship, comparable to Hawkeye's. Template fusion, the third technique, it's time to come out. In his mind, combined with Shanks' swordsmanship template, various techniques were optimally integrated, selecting the best and discarding the worst. Red-haired Shanks looked down at Summer, his gaze growing increasingly serious. Third move. Cloud Slash. A whirlwind appeared around Xiao Tian's body, and his powerful conqueror's haki formed haki lightning, while armament haki flowed from his arms. Raise your arm and strike. The movements were fluid and seamless, just like Shanks' swordsmanship clean and crisp. Although it's a fist, the moment it strikes is like a legendary sword being slashed out. The force of the punch was like the flash of a blade, carrying the meaning of a slash. The bow of the warship was pushed down by the rearward thrust when it punched in the Summer, causing the ship to list. Everyone stared in horror at this attack, it hadn't even been fully unleashed yet, and the clouds in the sky seemed about to shatter. Shanks' pupils narrowed, and then his Ryuo haki and Conqueror's haki intertwined around the sword. With a fierce slash, it came down. The same clean and decisive strike, the same strike delivered with almost all of its power. Sizzle!